you win the prize for the most compact camera.
Yeah. The most easiest to carry around.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't make the mistake of bringing something that's big and bulky. You just want something you can put in your pocket.
We're a bit jealous you want one of them for him.
Yeah, but you wouldn't get that in your pocket,
well,
would you?
no, that's true.
Sure that if you ask them nicely, they'll let you strap yours to theirs. They can carry on doing what they're doing, and you get the shot as well. It's not a problem.
You okay? Yeah, ready to go. Cool. So Chris, you're here at Tatton, and you're here on the Cheshire Show Gardens, aren't you? So tell us about what you're here today for.
Well, I think the show gardens here celebrate the diversity of what is on offer in Cheshire. Not only the diversity in terms of the aesthetic appeal, very different gardens, beautiful gardens, but also a great history, a story to tell, the kind of legacy of Cheshire's gardens. And it's really about the way in which the gardens have unfolded, the way that they've developed, and what they offer today. And the great thing is that it doesn't matter whether you're a novice gardener, a first-time gardener, whether you have a young family and you're just exploring open spaces, or whether you're an expert gardener looking for that extra challenge and that extra layer of information. The gardens here have something to offer, and that's really the message of these small show gardens. You can see the diversity in the way that they're arranged and constructed, and that's just a snapshot, just a brief snapshot of some of the wider gardens and landscapes that this county has to offer.
Indeed. And obviously you're regular at all the RHS shows. How does the Tatton show compare? What's different about this show in particular?
I think the Tatton show is lovely because it's where people smile. And that's the most important thing about gardens. You know, gardens are there to make us smart and make us feel good. And the nice thing is that the whole spirit, I think, of the county is really across this site. So it's a show where you have a really good blend of gardens, great professionalism, but overall gardeners enjoying themselves and not afraid to share tips and ideas about how we can all make our gardens better. And that's really what, whether you open your garden to a public or whether you just come and visit the show, that's what gardening is about. It's about sharing ideas.
And of course, we do all smile here, but of course it is still a competition. How important are those medals for the gardeners?
I think the medals are hugely important. At least if you win a gold medal, it's the most important thing in the world. If you don't win a gold medal, you weren't in it for the medal anyway. And that's all part of the course, really. It doesn't really matter. The point is that there's a large number of the public who will come through, and they will judge whether the garden has any rhyme or reason or sense. They will judge whether the garden is relevant to where they are right now. And with thousands of people flooding through the gates, to be honest, it doesn't matter what colour medal you get, it's the reaction you get from the public.
And obviously, here in the northwest, we've had a hose pipe ban imposed.
Yeah.
So it's quite difficult for gardeners, isn't
Yeah.
it? What are your top tips for gardeners to kind of get round that?
Okay, the first thing is to make sure that you have some mechanism for capturing the rain when it comes. You have a hosepipe ban, but hey, it's been raining. So make sure that you've got water butts, make sure you've got on your dam pipes, your drainage pipes, you've got little interceptors that you can buy from nurseries and garden centres that will divert the water into tanks and barrels, buckets, whatever it is you can store the water in, so that when it does rain you're able to capture it. Then think about using it very wisely. So water in the evening rather than in the morning or in the midday, because if you water in the evening when the temperature is slightly cooler, the water penetrates down into the depths of the roots rather than evaporating away from the surface. Put a layer of mulch on the ground, so any composted garden waste or bark mulch, that sort of thing, a 5 centimetre layer of mulch will avoid the water that's on the surface or near the surface of the soil evaporating away, and you can reduce the loss of water by up to a third if you put a 5 centimetre layer of organic matter on the surface. Don't dig the soil. So if you have a dry crust on the surface of the soil and you dig it, what you're doing is inverting the soil, and the moisture that's in the ground is suddenly exposed to the atmosphere, and that will evaporate away. And it has a kind of wicking effect, because it will then draw the water from deep down in the root zone up to the surface. If the soil is dry on the surface, don't water. Water deep. Plunge a cup or a plastic bottle, a lemonade bottle, cut the top off it, plunge it down into the ground with some holes drilled into it or stabbed into it with a knife or a fork or whatever, and water into that, because that will then gently let the water out at depth rather than wetting the surface. And also, of course, using ground cover plants. That could be as simple as sowing a few hardy annual seeds to clothe the ground, any areas of bare ground that you've got, or use dense shrubs and herbaceous perennials. The more ground you've got cover, the less the water is going to evaporate away. And also go for those plants which like being in dry conditions. This is a great example of a garden where you've got things like achilleas, the echinaceas, the grasses, the sedums, those sorts of things, all have evolved over millions of years. to create a mechanism for attracting wasps, a mechanism for salvaging water, and that's the key, really. There you go. He's on you now, just saying hello. It's being very polite.
He's attracting the bees, this garden, isn't it? Well, I've noticed that.
But when you look at the plants in this garden, you can see that some of them have got very whimsical leaves, like the grasses. So they've got reduced leaves, which means that the water doesn't evaporate away because they have a reduced surface area. The smaller the surface area, the less water is lost. Some of them, like the sedum here, have got a fleshy leaf. So when you touch the leaf, it's like a sort of spongy layer, and that's because it literally pumps almost a reservoir of water into the foliage, and you'll find it's nature at its best, isn't it? You've been bombarded with. You'll find that it pumps water into the foliage to act as a reservoir. Also, waxy leaves as well. Anything that's got a waxy surface is helping. That waxy surface is reducing the water loss from the leaves. Also, ferny leaves like the acacia. Again, about reducing the amount of water that's lost, reducing the total surface area. So think about the plants you're buying and how you're using them.
And finally, I don't think you've had much chance to look around yet, but what's kind of caught your eye this year at Tatton?
Oh, I think the mass of flowers. It's definitely a flower show. We've been through a few years when the flowers have been somewhat sidelined by architecture and style, and the flowers are definitely back in fashion, and I think that's fantastic, because for most of us it's the floral beauty, and of course the fruits and veggies, but essentially the floral beauty that we're attracted to gardening for. But I think also the fact that every available surface is being clothed with vegetation, whether it's roofs like this one here, or whether it's ground cover plants or walls. Every surface is being utilised. Every container is being employed to grow plants. And I think there's a real sense that gardening has something to offer at a time when we're perhaps being a little bit more conservative with the way that we're spending our money.
That's lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Quick snap.